So I want to give you a couple of tips for going back to school as a mature student, so somebody that's a little bit older. And that is thinking of going back to school. And I think that this is going to be really, really helpful for you because you have to deal with a lot of stuff. So if you don't know me, I am Professor Dave Massack. I'm an Associate Professor of Innovation Strategy and Entrepreneurship. And I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There's so many people that help me out that I don't want to pay the favor for it. Help you as fast as I possibly can. Okay. Here's some real big tips if you're thinking of going back to school. This is going to help you out a lot. So the first thing is you're going to feel a lot of stigma. So whether it is imaginary and like in your head, right, you sort of perceive stigma, or, that you do get sort of a couple of weird comments from other people, you got to square your shoulders back and just say, to hell with them. I'm just going to do this no matter what you say and what you're about. I'm just going to do this. Who cares, right? And frankly, it doesn't care. What is it the fact that you're actually doing? You're just reading a little bit. You're doing a little bit of mathematics. Maybe you're writing a little bit and that's it, right? Like, who cares? People do that on a day-to-day basis. So don't absorb any of that nonsense. So square your shoulders back and go out there and do some really cool things. The second thing is you got to kind of have to work around your schedule, right? Like you're going to have a lot more going on than somebody that's a little younger, that's completely dedicated to the profession or to to college. So just know that that's going on. Many of you have lots of stuff going on. And so work around that schedule as best as you can. So figure out how can you carve that out? Maybe you go to work part-time, you cut back a week, or you cut back a day or something like that, a week of working, just so you can go back to school, right? That's a really important thing, is to have that time and being able to sort of slice that stuff out. I know I wouldn't be able to do it if I was kind of doing things completely full time all the time. And then the other thing, I think a third thing that's really important is you just have to have unbelievable amounts of determination to actually get it done. Because many of you are extraordinarily talented. In fact, you have a lot more experience. So you are going to find some really interesting things. Oh, a fourth thing that I think is, you do encounter this a lot. And it's kind of related to that sort of you can't teach old dogs new tricks. Just kind of think through some things when you're there, and don't kind of sit there and be like, oh, that's not my experience and blah, 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 blah. Really kind of be there, right? Absorb what people are saying and thinking about. And yeah, it might be a little naive every once in a while, and you're like, this is kind of dumb. But just absorb it. That's part of what you're trying to do, is learn some things. In fact, what you'll go through, this is always and I'm assuming, I should know this, but, as somebody that studies learning, I should know this, but I'm assuming that there's kind of a learning sort of process that happens with students. I always feel like crap, and that stuff is crap. And then I think about it a day later and I'm like, I don't like that. It kind of sits with me, and I'm like, actually, wait a minute. There is a lot of truth to that. I kind of get it. A lot of things are like that. So just know when you're going into it, you're going to feel a lot of, what's called cognitive dissonance, which is that sort of feeling where you're like, I don't know. It sort of doesn't sit right in your head, but then you start to think about it as oh yeah, you know what? They actually were right. So you get lots and lots of moments like that. It's going to be a little bit more tricky for you to absorb some of those things. You're just at a different stage in your life. Early on, everybody is a little more naive, and they just kind of absorb stuff. They're used to that. But, once you live life and stuff, it kind of goes in a certain direction. And just know that that's going to happen. And just be well aware of that sort of feeling. So you're going to feel grumpy when you're learning. Everybody does. I don't know. You try to make it as fun as you possibly can. But you are going to feel grumpy when you're doing it. Just kind of expect that. So that's the other thing, is you likely have a partner or a spouse or, other people that are caring for you. Just kind of inform them about what's going on. I think having those conversations is really important. repeatedly over and over and over again, right? Like that's gonna be your biggest holdout. And sometimes you have to do it despite them and say, screw you, I'm going to do this anyways. Or sometimes, you have these conversations and you just keep going forward with it. So I want to tell you, like, education, like, I don't know why it has become so weirdly stigmatized in so many different ways. You're honestly just reading some things, but it's always been there, right? Like, there's this like real weird fear that you're going to turn into a pumpkin or something when you're, learning about different things. But honestly, just go out and do it, and you'll be like, wait a minute, I didn't know that, and that was that okay, right? Like, and you'll find out that there's some pretty valid evidence. Like, even if you are studying things related to the biggest area is a hot button topic, right? The whole religion thing. You're gonna learn a lot of stuff, and it's gonna be pretty interesting. That you're like, what? They did what? And you'll have a totally different perspective on it once you're done, right? Like as you go through these different things. So just expect that. You will be a lot more mature as you go through this, and you'll go through a lot of different things. You're like, wait a minute, this is pretty cool that I actually learned these kind of things. But at the time, and your belief in a lot of how the world works is going to be so different at the end of it. Completely different. I go through this all the time. This is like part of my job, and I'm still like going through this. It's like, when I learn something new or some new, theory that has been impactful, it sticks with you for some reason. You completely change, and that's one part of your life that you're never going to get back. Because kind of like this is, this amorphous mess before actually kind of has a little bit of, comes together, and you sort of understand things a little bit more. Not to say I know everything, but I've learned a few things, and it's kind of what happens in my mind. So just be prepared for all of those things. Be prepared to be frustrated. So you are going to feel frustrated. So that is an important thing. Try not to take it out on other people. Remember this emotion thing that you have going on. You can control that. That's what it means to be an adult. Control those emotions. Like that's helpful. You might have to go see a counselor throughout the process, right? Or a mental health professional. Because you're going to be going through a lot of stuff, and you're going to see some moments of like, this is crazy. Okay. That's all I wanted to say. All right. So just expect it. And then, the added thing is the whole stigma of you going back to school, and it's just nonsense. Honestly, just screw it. Just go do it. Honestly, like at the end of the day, like who cares? Does it really matter whether you do your school early or late? I mean, yes, your career prospects are much better early on because you could sort of take advantage of, what you learn for a longer period at the end of it. But whatever. I mean, if you're 75 years old and going back to school, like whatever. You're not doing it for the money anyways most of the time. All right. So, take care and have a wonderful day. That's all I wanted to talk about. All right. Bye.